Marcus adjusted his collar in the reflection of his car's rearview mirror, giving himself a final once-over before heading inside his mother's house. It was a big night, and everything had to be perfect. Tonight, he would finally celebrate a recent achievement with his mother, Clara, who had been his anchor through every hardship. It wasn't just any celebration, though. This was a private, quiet recognition of years of sacrifice and perseverance. Clara had always been his pillar, working multiple jobs to keep him fed, clothed, and in school. She had instilled in him a fierce work ethic and a vision of success. But more than that, she taught him the importance of kindness and humility, values he held close as he built his business empire from scratch. Now, Marcus owned several restaurants and venues across the city, with the chandelier being the latest and most luxurious addition to his collection. Tonight, he wanted his mother to experience the beauty and refinement of a place that represented his years of hard work. He wanted her to walk in and feel like a queen, to bask in the splendor of the very restaurant that he had meticulously designed and curated with guests just like her in mind. He reached her door and knocked, and soon enough, Clara opened it with a warm, welcoming smile. Her eyes sparkled as they met his, and she pulled him into a tight embrace. "My goodness, Marcus," she murmured, holding him as if he were still her little boy. "Look at you, all dressed up. You're a real picture of success." He chuckled, gently pulling back to take a look at her. She wore a simple yet elegant dress, with delicate earrings that shimmered in the dim evening light. Her hair was styled neatly, and her poise and dignity made her appear as graceful as ever. "And look at you, Mom, you look stunning," he said, offering his arm to her. They made their way to the car, chatting about the week's events, the latest family gossip, and all the small details that Clara loved to share. Marcus savored every word, feeling a swell of pride that his mother would finally get to see the fruit of their combined resilience. As they pulled up to the chandelier, Clara's eyes widened in awe. The restaurant was a masterpiece of design, with gleaming chandeliers casting a golden glow over the grand entrance. Elegant, floor-to-ceiling windows framed the building, and the entire structure radiated sophistication and warmth. "This place, Marcus, it's breathtaking," Clara whispered as he helped her out of the car. He simply smiled, nodding. "Only the best for you, Mom." They walked hand in hand toward the entrance, where Marcus hoped for a welcoming reception, an experience that would confirm the values he had painstakingly infused into the establishment. As they stepped inside, Clara took a deep breath, taking in the luxurious atmosphere, the soft jazz playing in the background, the quiet hum of conversation. It felt like a dream. But then, as they approached the hostess stand, the first hint of something unsettling began to brew. "Good evening. Do you have a reservation?" she asked, her tone polite but laced with a hint of coldness that Marcus didn't miss. "Yes, we do," he replied, maintaining a friendly smile, hoping that the experience would soon improve. The reservation should be under Marcus. Party of two. The hostess, whose name tag read Paige, raised an eyebrow slightly. Without looking up, she scanned through the list on her tablet with exaggerated slowness. After what felt like an unnecessarily long pause, she finally found their name and nodded, though her expression remained neutral, almost bored. "This way," Paige said, turning abruptly and motioning them to follow. She walked briskly through the dining room, barely giving them time to take in the surroundings or exchange more than a glance. Clara leaned in, whispering to her son, "It's lovely in here, really lovely." She tried to sound enthusiastic, but Marcus could sense a note of discomfort in her voice. As they followed Paige deeper into the restaurant, Marcus felt the stares of other patrons brush over them, eyes that lingered just a second too long, as if their presence required some sort of silent approval. Despite the opulence of the setting, there was an unspoken tension in the air that neither Marcus nor Clara could ignore. Finally, Paige stopped at a small table tucked near the kitchen entrance, far from the main dining area and the grand view of the city skyline that other tables enjoyed. She placed 2 menus on the table with a hollow smile and stepped back. "Your server will be with you shortly," she said, her voice mechanical, before turning and disappearing without another word. Marcus pulled out a chair for Clara. Watching her face carefully, she hesitated for just a second, her eyes flicking toward the other tables that were positioned in prime spots around the room. Then gave him a reassuring smile as she sat. "It's fine, Marcus," she said softly, as if sensing his disappointment. "Let's just enjoy the evening." Marcus forced a smile, though unease settled like a stone in his stomach. He had hoped they would be seated somewhere with a view. Somewhere they could fully appreciate the ambiance and beauty of the restaurant. He had meticulously designed the chandelier with an eye for elegance, making sure every detail was perfect. Yet here they were, placed near the clattering kitchen doors, almost as if they didn't belong among the other patrons. The minutes ticked by. Clara opened her menu, trying to appear unfazed, but Marcus noticed her glancing around, her composure wavering just a bit. Nearby tables received their drinks, their laughter and conversation filling the air. Servers moved quickly, attending to other guests, pouring wine and delivering appetizers with efficiency and warmth. But no one came to their table. Marcus clenched his jaw, fighting the rising frustration. He wanted this night to be special, a memory his mother would cherish. Yet here they were, seemingly invisible to the staff. Just as he was about to flag someone down, a server finally appeared, though with a tired, almost annoyed expression. Without any greeting, the server placed 2 glasses of water on the table, spilling a bit on Clara's side without a hint of an apology. He barely looked at them as he handed them their menus, then straightened and asked, "Are you ready to order?" Marcus looked up, startled by the abruptness of it all. They had barely had time to look at the menu, much less decide. "Actually, we'd like a few minutes. Please," he replied, maintaining a polite tone despite the irritation building within him. The server gave a slight, impatient nod, turning and disappearing before Marcus could ask for any recommendations or guidance on the menu. Clara sighed softly, folding her hands in her lap. "Marcus, maybe it's a busy night for them," she said, attempting to justify the cold treatment. "We're here together, and that's what matters." Marcus reached across the table, placing his hand over hers. "I wanted tonight to be special for you, Mom," he murmured, the weight of his disappointment clear in his voice. Clara squeezed his hand gently. "It is special, Marcus. Being with you is what makes it so." She smiled, her warmth and strength as constant as ever, even as she ignored the thin layer of water that had spilled near her plate. Just then, Paige returned to their table, her lips pressed in a tight, insincere smile. She glanced at Clara's glass, where the water had pooled, but made no attempt to clean it up. "Have you decided on drinks?" she asked curtly, her tone implying they were holding up her evening. Marcus kept his voice calm. "Actually, we'd like to move to a table with a view, if that's possible." Paige's smile faltered, and she glanced over her shoulder, where empty tables near the windows showcased a breathtaking view of the city skyline. Her eyes narrowed slightly before returning to them. "I'm afraid those tables are reserved for our regular guests," she replied, her voice laced with condescension. A tense silence hung between them. Clara's expression softened, but Marcus's gaze hardened, a flash of controlled anger in his eyes. Marcus held his mother's gaze for a moment, silently reassuring her. Then, turning back to Paige, he spoke calmly but firmly. "I see. Thank you for letting us know." Paige gave a brief nod, seeming satisfied with his response, and disappeared again without a word. Clara reached across the table, placing her hand gently on her son's arm, urging him to let it go. "Marcus, it's all right, we're here, and we can still enjoy our time together." But Marcus's mind was racing. He had spent months ensuring that every guest at the Chandelier would feel welcomed and valued. His staff had been trained to treat everyone with dignity, no matter who they were or how they looked. Yet here he was, with his own mother, being shunned in a place he owned, a place he had poured his heart into. Before he could respond to Clara, a loud, cheerful laugh erupted from a nearby table. He glanced over and saw a group of diners being served their appetizers by 3 attentive waiters. One of the waiters noticed Clara's glance and quickly looked away, pretending not to have seen her. Marcus's jaw tightened. This was not how he had envisioned this night. Just as he opened his mouth to say something, Paige returned, this time with a forced smile that barely reached her eyes. "Are you ready to order now?" she asked, her tone sharp, as though she had more pressing matters to attend to. Marcus took a deep breath, his patience wearing thin. "Yes," he replied, keeping his voice steady. He glanced at his mother, who gave him a small, encouraging nod. They placed their orders, and Paige jotted them down with a mechanical precision before disappearing once more without another word. Marcus watched her go, the irritation simmering just below the surface. Clara, ever the peacemaker, reached across the table to pat his hand. "Marcus, let's not let this ruin our night," she said softly. "We're together, and that's all that matters. People like her, they're just a part of life. You and I both know that." He sighed, nodding, though the frustration in his eyes hadn't entirely faded. "You're right, Mom," he replied, managing a small smile, "but it shouldn't have to be like this. Not here, not in my restaurant." Clara's eyes softened, and she gave his hand a comforting squeeze. "You've built something incredible, Marcus. Don't let this moment overshadow all you've achieved." Just as Clara finished speaking, their server returned, this time bringing their appetizers with an air of forced politeness. The plates were set down without a word, and the server walked away, again without any offer to refill their water or check on them. Marcus's irritation grew, but he held his tongue for his mother's sake. As they began to eat, trying to enjoy their meal despite the awkwardness, a few diners nearby continued to cast curious, occasionally judgmental glances in their direction. Clara kept her focus on her food, her graceful demeanor unshaken, while Marcus felt his frustration build with every dismissive look and whispered comment. Halfway through their meal, the server returned, pausing just long enough to mutter, "Desserts?" in a tone that barely disguised his impatience. Marcus met his gaze, his expression steady and unreadable. "We're still enjoying our dinner. Thank you," he replied, his voice cool. The server's mouth tightened, but he nodded, clearly eager to move on. As he left, Marcus took a deep breath, trying to center himself. He wanted nothing more than to stand up and confront Paige, the server, and everyone else who had treated his mother with such disregard. But he kept his composure, choosing instead to savor these quiet moments with her. Then, just as they were finishing the main course, Paige reappeared, her expression still unreadable but with an air of false politeness. "I'm afraid we'll need this table for other guests soon," she said, glancing around as though to emphasize how busy the restaurant was. Marcus could feel the last thread of his patience slipping. He took a slow, deliberate breath before looking her in the eyes. "Actually, Paige, I don't think that will be necessary," he said, his voice steady but carrying a weight she couldn't ignore. She frowned, clearly thrown off by his response. "Excuse me?" Marcus stood up, his gaze never leaving hers. "I don't think you'll need this table because, as of this moment, my mother and I have every right to stay as long as we wish. In fact, I think we might even enjoy a dessert or two." Paige's eyes widened slightly, confusion flickering across her face. She glanced nervously around, realizing that other patrons had started to take notice of the exchange. With a calm smile, Marcus continued, "You see, Paige, my name isn't just Marcus. It's Marcus Bennett, and I am the owner of the Chandelier." A stunned silence fell over the dining area. Paige's face went pale, her professional facade slipping entirely as realization dawned on her. The server, who had overheard, froze in his tracks, while other patrons exchanged shocked glances, whispering to one another. Clara, watching her son with quiet pride, placed a hand on his arm, a gentle reminder to keep his composure. Marcus nodded, his gaze softening as he looked at her, though his determination was unwavering. Turning back to Paige, he added, "I built this restaurant to be a place where everyone feels welcome, where everyone is treated with respect. And I'm deeply disappointed to see that not everyone here shares that vision." Paige stammered, trying to regain her footing. I didn't realize. It's not about who you think someone is, Paige, it's about treating everyone with the same respect, whether you know their name or not." Marcus interrupted, his tone firm yet calm. At that moment, the manager rushed over, clearly having heard the commotion. "Mr. Bennett, I had no idea you were here tonight. I apologize sincerely for any issues you and your guest may have experienced." Marcus met the manager's gaze, his expression serious. "We'll discuss this later. For now, I'd like you to ensure that my mother and I, along with every other guest here, are treated with the respect they deserve." The manager nodded quickly, motioning to the now frozen Paige to follow him as he hurriedly ushered her away. The server, too, retreated, casting anxious glances over his shoulder. Marcus sat back down, turning to his mother with a softer expression. Clara gave him a small, proud smile, her hand resting gently on his. "You handled that well," she said quietly. He sighed, the tension easing from his shoulders. I just wanted tonight to be special for you. Mom, I'm sorry it turned out this way. Clara squeezed his hand, her eyes filled with pride and love. Marcus, it was special. You showed everyone in this room what true respect looks like. That's a lesson far more valuable than any fine dining experience. Together, they shared a dessert, the atmosphere around them markedly different now. Staff members moved discreetly yet attentively, making sure their table was attended to with the utmost care. Patrons who had once looked on with indifference now watched them with a newfound respect. Perhaps even admiration. As they finished their meal, Clara glanced around the restaurant with a small smile, her voice soft but full of meaning. I'm proud of you, Marcus. You've built more than just a restaurant. You've built a legacy. The following day, Marcus arrived at the Chandelier with a clear purpose. After the previous night's events, he was determined to address the issues in his restaurant, ensuring that the values he held dear would permeate every aspect of the establishment. As he entered, the staff, including Paige and the server who had dismissed him and his mother, avoided his gaze, casting nervous glances as they continued their morning preparations. He called a meeting in the main dining area, gathering the entire team in a semicircle around him. The room was silent, filled with a mix of apprehension and curiosity. Good morning, everyone, he began, his tone calm but resolute. I wanted to speak with all of you about something very important. As many of you know, I brought my mother here last night to enjoy a meal, but instead of feeling welcomed, we were met with indifference, judgment, and outright disrespect. A few staff members shifted uncomfortably, and Paige's cheeks flushed red. But Marcus continued, his voice unwavering. This restaurant isn't just a business to me. It's a place I built from the ground up. A place that reflects my vision of respect, inclusion, and hospitality. And last night, I didn't see any of that. Instead, I saw behavior that was the exact opposite of everything I stand for, and everything the Chandelier should represent. He paused, letting his words sink in. It's not enough to serve good food or create a beautiful atmosphere. True luxury and refinement come from how we treat people. Every single person who walks through that door deserves the same respect, no matter who they are. A quiet murmur rippled through the staff, some nodding in understanding. Marcus's gaze swept over them, his expression firm yet compassionate. I'm not here to make anyone feel small or ashamed. I'm here to help us all grow, to make sure that this restaurant becomes the kind of place we can all be proud of. He turned his attention to Paige, who looked as though she wanted to shrink into the floor. Paige, he said, his tone gentle but direct. I understand that we all have moments when we fall short. But last night, you represented something that we cannot allow here. I want you to take a moment to reflect on why you're in this role, and what it means to make everyone feel welcome. Paige swallowed, nodding slightly, clearly grappling with her emotions. I'm sorry, Mr. Bennett, she managed, her voice barely above a whisper. I didn't mean to make anyone feel uncomfortable. I didn't realize. It's okay, Paige, he said, his voice softening. The most important thing is that we learn and move forward. I want you, and everyone here, to understand that every guest who walks in deserves the same level of respect and care. That's what true hospitality is about. Turning to the entire group, Marcus continued, starting today, we're implementing new training to make sure everyone understands these values. I'll be working closely with all of you to build a culture of respect and inclusion that defines the Chandelier. After the meeting, Marcus stayed behind to speak with staff members individually, listening to their concerns and answering questions. He wanted them to understand that he was committed to their growth and success, as well as to the growth of the restaurant's reputation as a place of warmth and welcome. As he spoke with each team member, he saw genuine remorse and understanding in their eyes. Many of them thanked him for the chance to improve, expressing a newfound commitment to the standards he'd set. Even Paige, who had seemed initially resistant, approached him quietly, her expression sincere. Mr. Bennett, she said, her voice tentative, I really am sorry. I didn't realize the impact of my actions. I've been here for so long that I think I just took the job for granted. I understand now, though, and I want to do better. Marcus gave her an encouraging nod. Thank you, Paige. That's all I ask, for you to treat every guest the way you'd want someone to treat your own family. Let's work together to make this place everything it's meant to be. Over the following weeks, Marcus put his words into action. He held workshops on empathy and customer service, hired diversity consultants to help improve the restaurant's atmosphere, and spent time training his team on the values he held close. He was patient, understanding that change took time, but he was firm in his expectations. Slowly but surely, the shift in culture became evident. The staff grew more attentive, learning to look beyond surface judgments and treat every guest with genuine kindness. Paige transformed the most, her once indifferent attitude replaced by a newfound enthusiasm. She became one of the most welcoming faces of the Chandelier, ensuring each guest felt valued and respected. Marcus also noticed a change in the patrons. Word spread quickly about the restaurant's inclusive values and welcoming environment, attracting a more diverse clientele who felt comfortable dining in such a refined space. The Chandelier became known not just for its exceptional cuisine and ambiance but for its reputation as a place where everyone, regardless of background, was treated like family. One evening, Clara returned to the Chandelier for another dinner with Marcus. This time, Paige greeted her with a warm, sincere smile, addressing her with respect and genuine hospitality. Clara noticed the difference immediately, her heart swelling with pride as she observed the transformation Marcus had brought about. As they enjoyed their meal, Marcus glanced around the restaurant, seeing the dream he'd envisioned finally come to life. His mother's proud smile told him everything he needed to know, that his efforts had not only restored the restaurant's reputation but had created a place that embodied the values he held close. Clara reached across the table, taking her son's hand with a proud, loving smile. "Marcus, you've done more than just change a restaurant. You've created a home, a place where people can feel like they truly belong." Marcus squeezed her hand, a deep gratitude filling his heart. "Thank you, Mom. I couldn't have done it without you." In that moment, surrounded by warmth and acceptance, Marcus knew he had built more than a business. He had built a legacy of respect, compassion, and courage that would endure for years to come. News of the Chandelier and its unique atmosphere spread far beyond the city. It wasn't just another luxury restaurant, it was known for its unwavering commitment to making every guest feel welcomed and respected. As articles appeared in newspapers and social media posts praised its warmth, people from all backgrounds began traveling to experience the restaurant firsthand. The Chandelier had become more than just a dining spot, it was a symbol of change. A place where kindness was served as generously as the food. One morning, as Marcus reviewed the restaurant's reservations for the upcoming weekend, he noticed an unusual name on the list. Mr. Gerald Porter, the CEO of one of the largest hospitality corporations in the country, had reserved a table. Marcus felt a surge of curiosity. Gerald Porter was known for his no-nonsense, business-first approach. His establishments were famous for their efficiency and profit margins, but they had a reputation for lacking the personal touch. Marcus wondered why a man like Porter would be interested in the Chandelier. When Friday evening arrived, Marcus decided to personally greet Mr. Porter. As the older man entered, his expression was one of mild curiosity, but his discerning gaze quickly took in every detail of the establishment. He was tall, with a stern face softened only slightly by graying hair and wire-rimmed glasses. "Mr. Porter, welcome to the Chandelier," Marcus said warmly, extending his hand. "I'm Marcus Bennett, the owner." Gerald Porter shook his hand firmly, his expression unreadable. "Thank you, Mr. Bennett. I've heard quite a lot about this place. It seems you've managed to create quite a stir in the industry." Marcus smiled. "I'm honored that you'd come to see it for yourself. Please, follow me. We've prepared a special table for you." As they walked to the table, Porter observed the dining room in silence. He noted the relaxed yet professional demeanor of the staff, the careful attention to detail, and, most notably, the warmth in each interaction he witnessed. The guests seemed comfortable, engaged, and at ease. It was unlike any dining experience he had encountered. When they reached the table, Marcus motioned for him to sit and personally handed him the menu. "Tonight, I wanted you to experience not just our food, but the heart of the Chandelier, the spirit of welcome and respect that we believe makes all the difference." Porter nodded, scanning the menu before meeting Marcus's gaze. "You've certainly built a reputation for that. But tell me, Mr. Bennett, is kindness truly profitable? You've created a lot of goodwill. But at the end of the day, a restaurant is a business. How does this focus on welcome and respect translate into success?" Marcus met his gaze steadily, prepared for the question. Kindness isn't just profitable, it's invaluable. People remember how they're treated. They come back because they feel at home here. Our approach builds loyalty and a sense of belonging. Guests aren't just patrons, they're part of a larger community. And that's something they carry with them long after they leave. Porter raised an eyebrow. Intrigued. Interesting perspective. I run my restaurants to maximize efficiency. High turnover. Streamlined processes. We focus on the bottom line. It's been effective, but perhaps impersonal. Marcus nodded. There's no question that efficiency is important. But what I've found is that when you focus on the experience, on making each guest feel seen and valued, the profits follow naturally. People feel they're part of something bigger. And that loyalty is worth more than any marketing campaign. Their conversation was interrupted as Paige arrived to take Porter's order. Her demeanor confident and welcoming. She recommended the chef's special for the night and described it with genuine enthusiasm, making Porter nod in approval. Throughout the evening, Porter experienced the difference firsthand. Staff members moved gracefully, treating each table as if it were the only one in the room. Guests exchanged smiles, and there was a palpable sense of connection that Porter had rarely seen in his establishments. When his meal was served, he couldn't help but savor each bite, impressed not only by the flavors but by the attentiveness surrounding him. After dessert, Porter leaned back, clearly thoughtful. I have to admit, Mr. Bennett, you may be onto something. This place, it's unlike anything I've seen. It feels less like a business and more like a family. Marcus smiled, his heart swelling with pride. That's exactly what I wanted. The chandelier isn't just mine. It belongs to everyone who walks through those doors. Porter nodded slowly, his gaze contemplative. I think there's something we could learn from you. Hospitality has always been about people. But somewhere along the way, I lost sight of that. Before he left, Porter extended his hand once more. Thank you, Marcus. I came here to satisfy my curiosity. But I'm leaving with much more than that. You've reminded me of what hospitality truly means. As Porter walked out the door, Marcus knew that he had planted a seed, a small ripple of change that might, in time, influence even the larger, more corporate side of the hospitality industry. With Porter's visit and the stories spreading, other restaurant owners, managers, and hospitality professionals began reaching out to Marcus. Some came in person to dine and witness the chandelier's unique atmosphere, while others sent letters or emails. Curious about his approach, Marcus shared his insights openly. Believing that kindness, when spread, only multiplied, he conducted workshops, gave talks, and even began mentoring young entrepreneurs who shared his vision. One day, he received a letter from Ava Jenkins, the young woman who had previously visited him in his office. Now nearing the end of her studies in hospitality, her letter was filled with gratitude and inspiration, as she described how she had begun implementing the chandelier's values in her projects. She was now spearheading a new student initiative focused on empathy and respect in customer service, a program that was gaining attention at her university. Marcus felt a profound sense of purpose as he read her words, knowing that his mother's values of kindness and resilience had not only shaped him but were now rippling outward, touching lives he would never meet. Later that year, the chandelier celebrated its first anniversary since its transformation. Marcus hosted a grand gathering, inviting staff, loyal patrons, and community members to share in the celebration. Clara, of course, was at his side, beaming with pride. As he took the stage to give a speech, Marcus looked out at the crowd, his heart full. Tonight, we celebrate more than just a year of serving meals. We celebrate a community that has come together to redefine what it means to truly welcome one another. The chandelier isn't just a restaurant, it's a testament to what we can achieve when we put people first. When we make kindness our foundation. The room erupted in applause. And Marcus saw familiar faces, guests who had become regulars, staff who had transformed, and strangers who had come to feel at home. Clara took his hand, smiling up at him. You've created something extraordinary, Marcus, and this is only the beginning. He looked around, knowing that she was right. The values his mother had taught him had become the backbone of the chandelier, and they would continue to spread, touching hearts and changing minds, one meal at a time. In the months following the chandelier's anniversary, Marcus found himself more deeply invested than ever in the restaurant's mission. He continued to meet with other entrepreneurs, sharing his vision of hospitality centered around respect and empathy. He was gratified to see the Chandelier's reputation spreading. But along with this success came an unforeseen challenge. One evening, Marcus received a letter from a nearby restaurant owner, Thomas Green, who had once been a friend and occasional rival in the hospitality industry. Thomas's restaurant, Ember and Oak, was known for its sleek, modern design and fast-paced, high-end service, but it had recently been struggling to retain customers, many of whom were now flocking to the Chandelier. The letter was brief and tense, but the message was clear. Thomas felt that Marcus's approach to hospitality was disrupting the local market, casting a shadow over restaurants like his that prioritized efficiency and profitability over personal connection. In his letter, Thomas implied that Marcus's overly sentimental approach was creating unrealistic expectations for restaurants that couldn't afford the same level of service. Marcus was taken aback. He hadn't intended to disrupt the competition. His only goal had been to create a space that reflected his values. But Thomas's words stuck with him. Was he unintentionally hurting other businesses by setting a new standard? And was it even possible to stay true to his vision without affecting the rest of the market? After some reflection, Marcus decided to reach out to Thomas directly. He invited him to dinner at the Chandelier, hoping they could discuss the situation face to face. When Thomas arrived, he seemed hesitant, his expression a mixture of pride and resentment. Marcus greeted him warmly, guiding him to a private table near the back of the restaurant. "Thank you for coming, Thomas," Marcus began, his tone gentle but sincere. "I wanted to talk in person because I value our connection. I didn't realize my approach was causing any issues for your business." Thomas gave a curt nod, clearly struggling with his emotions. "Marcus, look around. This place, it's beautiful. It's warm. People feel like they're part of something special here. And that's great, but not every restaurant can operate this way. My guests have started expecting the same level of personal attention that you offer here. And I can't provide that without losing revenue. I don't have the resources to compete." Marcus nodded thoughtfully, understanding the conflict Thomas faced. "I see your point, Thomas. I know that every restaurant has a unique approach. And not every place can or should operate like the Chandelier. But I think there's a way for us to coexist, by celebrating what makes each of our spaces unique." Thomas raised an eyebrow, intrigued but skeptical. "And how would that work? You've set a standard that's impossible for most of us to reach." Marcus leaned forward, speaking earnestly. "What if we each leaned into our strengths? At the Chandelier, we focus on a personal, warm experience, but Ember and Oak has a reputation for innovative dishes and a fast-paced, modern dining style. We don't have to compete in the same way. In fact, I think there's a way we can complement each other. Imagine a partnership where we showcase the diversity of dining experiences in this city. A way to remind guests that every restaurant has something special to offer." Thomas seemed to consider this, his expression softening as he realized the potential in Marcus's idea. "So you're suggesting a collaboration? Something that highlights the different strengths we bring to the table?" "Exactly," Marcus replied with a smile. "We could host joint events, or even organize a dining experience where guests try both the Chandelier and Ember and Oak. It's about giving people options, letting them experience the best of what each restaurant has to offer." Thomas nodded slowly, a glimmer of excitement sparking in his eyes. "That's an interesting idea. Instead of competing for the same customers, we could create a community of restaurants, each offering something unique." The two men spent the rest of the evening brainstorming ideas. They discussed organizing an annual event where several local restaurants, each with a distinct style, could come together to offer a collaborative dining experience, celebrating the diversity of the city's culinary scene. This way, guests could appreciate each establishment's strengths without expecting every restaurant to operate in the same way. By the end of the night, Thomas's attitude had shifted. He shook Marcus's hand, a genuine smile on his face. "Thank you, Marcus. I came here feeling like I was losing to you. But now I feel like we're on the same team." Marcus returned the handshake, grateful for the renewed sense of camaraderie. "We are on the same team, Thomas. There's room for all of us, as long as we stay true to what makes us unique." News of the collaboration spread quickly, capturing the attention of both locals and the press. Together with Thomas and a few other restaurant owners, Marcus organized the first ever dining district renaissance. a city-wide event where guests could purchase tickets to dine at a series of participating restaurants. Each venue offered a signature dish that showcased its unique style, giving guests a full spectrum of dining experiences in one evening. The Chandelier was one of the main stops, providing an intimate, soulful experience that stood out amid the fast-paced energy of some of the other venues. As guests moved from one restaurant to the next, they began to appreciate the range of dining styles available in the city and the passion each establishment brought to the table. The event was a resounding success. Marcus and Thomas's collaboration brought new life to the city's dining scene, revitalizing businesses and sparking a sense of unity among restaurant owners. Guests left with a newfound appreciation for the diversity and creativity of the city's culinary community. Following the event, Marcus noticed that guests at the Chandelier began to appreciate the personal touch even more, understanding that it was just one of many ways to enjoy dining. Thomas's restaurant, too, saw a surge in customers who came specifically for the sleek, modern experience he offered. As Marcus stood at the entrance of the Chandelier that evening, watching satisfied guests leave, he felt a profound sense of fulfillment. His journey hadn't just been about transforming a restaurant, it had been about creating a culture that embraced kindness, individuality, and unity. The Chandelier had become a symbol of change, not just in its own walls but throughout the city. Clara joined him at the entrance, wrapping her arm around his. "I heard the event was a success," she said, pride shining in her eyes. "It was, Mom," Marcus replied, his voice full of gratitude. "It feels like we've started something that's bigger than just this restaurant. I think we've helped create a community, a place where every restaurant, every person, has a place." Clara smiled, squeezing his arm. "You've done more than that, Marcus. You've shown people that kindness and cooperation can change the world, one meal at a time." They stood together, watching as the lights of the city illuminated the streets, filled with people celebrating, laughing, and enjoying the simple yet profound joy of being together. Marcus knew that the Chandelier was just the beginning, a foundation for a legacy of kindness and unity that would continue to grow, touching lives far beyond what he had ever imagined.